Yeah, so yeah, what you need a couple more minutes? You ready? You ready? All right, but I mean, I'm going through Facebook shows everybody's birthdays or whatever, it, and it looks like to me it's like September. My whole friend list is was born in September. It looks like it's like every day. I got like 10, 20 people with a birthday on in September, and I mean it's just crazy. Yeah, it yeah. Yeah, I know it's the ninth month, but oh, what you mean? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, it's because yeah. So that means they would have been conceived in like December, January. Oh, okay.
From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that, from the road to your ears. This is Trend Chat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
And welcome to another episode of Trend Chat. I am your host, Brian Bledsoe, and if you want to connect with us, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, or TikTok. It's all the same name at Trend Chat 24/7. So, on this episode, we're going to have Konni Burton on to talk about the new news outlet, The Texan, and we'll talk about that and some other things. And so, first off, I just want to say a thanks to our new brand sponsor, TrumpMug.com. We announced them last episode, and so if you want anything from like mugs, flags, pins, coins, all sorts of, as I said, Trump-centric merchandise, you just go to TrumpMug.com. And you put in the code Trend Chat, you get 10% off on whatever you like. And so, yeah, give them a look over there at TrumpMug.com. Like I said, I appreciate having them on. So, first off, as I mentioned at my social media, you can connect with Trend Chat on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and yes, and also TikTok. It's all the same name at Trend Chat 24/7. And the reason why I bring it up because I've been hearing this, I guess kind of a saying from a number of people, when talking about social media in particular. And a lot of times, I guess because Twitter, whether it's Facebook or whatever, social media has, I guess I guess it seems like social media is very toxic, I guess, in a way, because of all, how people can be so just outright just vicious towards one another on, whatever platform you're talking about. And so a lot of times with this, I hear people say, well, social media is not real life, try to say, or just say something like that, try to make it seem like, well, basically kind of make it seem like these are not real people. This is not really how people are, I guess. And I disagree with that. I hear that from time to time from a lot of people I respect, but when I hear that, I'm like, I don't agree with that, because to me personally, I think social media, all it is it just exposes what's already inside, and what we see, all the viciousness and the hate and that we see is basically it's just shining a light on the depravity that we all have, and we're just seeing it in public as opposed to all these thoughts being in your head and no one knowing about it. Now we have a platform out here to actually be ourselves, especially with the anonymity of being online. You don't have to see the person face to face. So you really get a chance to just say what you want because you feel somewhat safe. And so you just say what you really feel. And like I said, I just think social media is just shining a light on the depravity of all our hearts, really. And so, I think when people mention that, when people want to say that, this is not real life and try to dismiss it, I think it kind of comes from the notion, I guess maybe, because a lot of people, Christians included, have this thought that, we're all basically good people. And so I think it kind of comes from that, even though if they're thinking that way, that kind of, contradicts, like Romans 3, none is righteous, no, not one, or, Psalm 51, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me, or Ecclesiastes 7:20, so on. So it's like I said, for me personally, I just think what we see is what we're just getting the raw emotions from, and the raw feelings from people across the world. Before internet and social media, we just didn't have the capability to tell everyone how we feel, or we didn't have the capability to see how other people feel. But now we see it. It's out there. I know sometimes I mentioned before that a lot of times when we think about as far as how pervasive social media is, and I would say what really has happened is that because the internet and because social media are just so easily accessible, what you normally would say maybe in the confines of your own home, or to your neighbor, you're putting it on your social media platform, which goes across to for everyone to see. It's just, it's just the same thing. And so that all that being said, because I know in talking about this, it kind of feeds into it just being, everything being so toxic and everyone just hating on each other and just screaming at each other, I guess, in all caps, on all these platforms. And, I had something kind of like that in a way. It wasn't that big of a deal, where I commented on Texas Representative, Matt Schaefer's post, following the, shooting that happened in, Midland and Odessa recently. And, I just said, thank you for standing up for our rights, because he had a great post. I think you should check it out. I have it on my Facebook page at Brian Bledsoe, on my personal page. I think I put it on Trend Chat page as well. But yeah, and so just by me saying thank you for standing up for our rights, I got some some hateful comments, and whatever. I really don't care to respond to that. And, if they start off with telling me to, go to hell or whatever like that, I normally just dismiss and don't care, because what's the point? That's not a discussion, and they definitely didn't start, they're not starting off and wanting to have a civil discussion. That being said, within that, all those comments, I actually had, now brace yourself. I actually had a civil discussion in the comment section, in that same comment section, where I commented, and me and another guy, he made his point, I made my point, we went back and forth. I didn't agree with his position, he didn't agree with mine, and we kept going back and forth, and it didn't get ugly. We said our piece. At the end, we actually invited the other to talk again later, and it ended just like that. That was it. It was a discussion, which is rare. Honestly, I think I maybe have an actual discussion that goes past maybe one or two sentences before the other person start calling your names. That happens maybe once or twice a year online. So given that, that happened last week, I'm guessing that's not going to happen again until next year sometime. So, but yeah, when I start talking about, about social media and have that come up, it just, that kind of something that came to mind. Wanted to, well, as I mentioned about that, yeah, so another shooting, happened in Texas, in Odessa, in Midland area. And again, in the face of this tragedy that happened, and also given the fact that it was pretty close to Dayton and El Paso, and so again, the same people want to come out here and basically disarm law-abiding citizens and want to take away the guns of people that had nothing to do with none of this. They're out in force again, calling for gun control, and which that prompted me to. That's why I said what I said on Representative Schaefer's post on Facebook and Twitter. And so the sad part about this is that we're going to get to the point, unfortunately, and I hope people like, Texas Representative Matt Schaefer and others, I hope they stand strong to principle in the face of all this, emotion that is being stirred up. Because but I said it, but time and time again, I mean, legislation by emotion, due to the lack of will to stand up for principles, it works. And we know it works because a lot of times you have people go to, whether it's the state legislature or up to DC or whatever. And if enough people make enough fuss, can actually maybe change the mind of a lawmaker to do something that they themselves may not want to do, but in one sense they're thinking about, well, their reelection chances or whatever, and a lot of times that tends to sway them, and because of stuff like this, we're seeing our rights just being eroded day after day, because of this. And this, I was going to bring this up later on, but I mean, you keep hearing about this silent majority a lot. And if this silent majority keeps staying silent, they're going to let people that, like this gun control debate, they're going to let these people come in and basically shape legislation to the point to where you're not going to recognize this country, especially from the sense of the Constitution goes. So I would definitely say, this silent majority need to stop being silent, because being silent is not helping. I don't know if it's the sense of, well, we make our voices known at the ballot box and whatnot. Okay. I mean, that sounds good, but it's not just the ballot box either, because unless you're talking about voting, like for every single thing, which we know it's not the case. I mean, obviously it's, the main times is during the presidential years when the most people are engaged. But yeah, this, I mean, you do what you want. I mean, I can't make you, get engaged. I can't, but if you're one of those people who are listening and part of that silent majority, I can't imagine that you don't see what's going on by being silent. I mean, I think it's time to do something, because what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Because, and there's a lot of squeaky wheels out there, especially ones out here calling for gun control. So, but, I mean, and it was some other things I'm gonna get into as well. So, but, another thing as well, and talking about this shooting and, this most recent shooting, it really is starting to dispel, I guess, the stereotype about Texans and guns, because we've had El Paso, now we have Odessa, and, being in Texas, and, I guess the stereotype, especially the people outside of Texas, I guess, is like everyone in Texas is packing. Everyone got a gun. Everyone got a gun. It's like the Wild Wild West. Everybody just walking around with the guns out, just ready to shoot, which is not true. And it's kind of, with these shootings, it's kind of showing that, the people here in Texas are pretty much just like everywhere else. And there are not enough people that exercise their right to self-defense, which is their right to do. But I'm just saying, there's not enough people. There's a good majority of people that don't carry. And it shows with situations like this. When you have these situations and you have a very low number of people who actually carry, who are capable of carrying, but have been conditioned by, the media to basically be afraid to take security in their own hands, or to be responsible for their own security. And so they don't care to carry, and they don't, learn and train to have a firearm. And so, just like in Texas, this can happen anywhere. But yeah, don't get me wrong. We have laws where we are able to carry. It just just because we have laws here in Texas that give us a lot more flexibility as far as carrying. I mean, obviously it can be better. We can have constitutional carry, but even if we did have constitutional carry, that doesn't mean people are going to start carrying. So, because again, there's too many people who have scared themselves into not thinking they should, protect themselves or should carry a firearm. They have been made to be fearful, to do anything like that, and basically rely on the police and whoever, the state, to take care of them. So yeah, it's that's where we're at. So, and I really would hope, even though I'm not optimistic about it, but I would hope more people would take more responsibility in their safety. As far as, doesn't have to be a firearm. I would say that's the best way. But if you want to, whether anything else, and just, I would just guess people will stop being so dependent, not only on other issues, but also now as far as just, your own, take responsibility in your own safety. But yeah, so like I said, we're going to get to our interview with kind of Burton later. But first off, before we get to that, let's hear a word from our friends at the Founding Project.
Hello to fans of Trend Chat and Brian Bledsoe. The Founding Project, an education nonprofit dedicated to civics, invites you to visit our brand new website, Visit us at thefoundingproject.com. Be a part of the civics movement with The Founding Project. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Please join us today.
Hey everyone, this is Amy Robbins with Alexo Athletica, and you're listening to Trend Chat.
Man, I missed playing that, but yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, now I remember why I stopped playing this, because I get into it. So if you don't know, when that is playing, I am in the back just like air guitaring like crazy. But, and then it stops and I forget what I'm about to talk about. So, and, I now remember why I stopped playing it. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but I guess kind of going back to what I was talking about, the silent majority, basically not doing us any favors by being so silent, because I'm thinking about other things as well, because now in response to what has happened, you have Kroger, you have, I think it was Walgreens or maybe CVS. I forgot which one of them pharmacies anyway. And Walmart not selling certain, ammo now and asking people to not open carry again, especially the whole thing about asking people not to open carry, because as I mentioned before, because so many people has been made afraid of the sight of a gun now, and it doesn't even matter, it doesn't even matter anymore. Just the sight of a gun is enough to freak people out. And now you got companies like that, and you got all this going on with companies, and then you got, the typical liberals out here, the celebrities, the blue checks out here, just, pushing all sorts of gun control and all that. And these people have millions of followers and are influential to lots of people, especially young people. And yet again, we have, like I said, they have this silent majority out here saying nothing. And meanwhile, all these people are out here pushing these companies to be more and more liberal. And, even to the Mecca of leftism, San Francisco out here has deemed the NRA as a domestic terrorist organization now. And here we are coming up close to 2020. And so, you got President Trump running for re-election, and it's going to be crazy. You're going to have this very vocal opposition out here, very vocal, and it's going to be coming from all fronts, but yeah, again, so yeah, I just, that it's starting to grate on me in a way, because I'm like, y'all need to step up and do something in a way, because y'all sitting back and just basically just watching the world burn. So, but that being said, who knows? We'll see. I'm not confident, really, to be honest, because I don't think this silent majority really exists to the point to where I think it's going to make much of a difference. I think a lot of them are not. They're just. I don't know. I'm becoming less and less of a believer of this silent majority. Yeah. So anyway, before we get to our interview, I know another thing I want to mention too is and before we get to that, just want to give a thanks to 1776united.com. 1776united.com. If you've ever seen me with one of the hats, like the Betsy Ross flag hat or the Don't Tread on Me snapback, like with Don't Tread on Me under the bill hat and mugs, I think I posted some of the mugs on social media here and there. And so shirts and all that, also the patriotic gear and accessories, check them out. And if you put in the code 76militia, 76, like 1776 militia, like, a well-regulated militia. So 76militia-Trinchat, you get 20% off on the 20% off whatever on the site. So thanks to them as well for being a brand partner to the podcast. And I saw, I guess there was a final trailer, just to kind of switch on to talk about movies a little bit, because there was a trailer for this new Joker movie, which my opinions of a lot of these movies, especially the ones that are focused on the villains. We've seen a lot of these lately, especially in the past 5 years or so, where you have Maleficent, basically talking about the Wicked Witch. Actually, I don't really know. I forgot what that was. I think it's a Wicked Witch. But anyway, it's focused on the villain as opposed to to the hero or whatever. And so you got a lot of these movies that have been coming out that's like that. And so Joker is just another one of those where this is a movie about the villain. And I normally don't care for these type of movies only because I feel like they're it feels like they're just more of trying to normalize evil in a way, or try to make it seem like, trying to normalize it in a way, just trying to make it seem that they're just misunderstood as opposed to just being evil or being depraved. Try to, I guess, make you feel some sort of sympathy towards them, as opposed, like, they're not really that bad of a guy. They were just misunderstood or something like that, And look, like I said, these are comic book movies anyway, but it's still, you've had others as well. I mean, there's people, people love Scarface, he was pretty much a villain of Godfather, so it's not like just comic book movies or whatnot, or cartoons or whatever. But yeah, but anyway, the final trailer for this movie came out, and just recently the reviews have come out, and I've noticed, I've seen a couple of reviews from these critics, and they all pretty much love the movie. I think this probably going to get like one of those movies that's going to get maybe 100%. Well, close to the 90s as far as Rotten Tomatoes score, as far as the critics go. But one thing I noticed in their reviews is that they felt that they worry a little bit that the Joker movie may get co-opted or may become a symbol to the alt-right, that where people in the alt-right may see this character and become attached and think, use him as the mascot or as a figure to look up to or whatever from the alt-right. Now, okay, whatever. One thing I haven't seen from all these reviews, they always mention that they'll mention alt-right and they'll mention extremist groups, may get attached, may attach themselves to this villain, and they worry that that this may, I don't know, may be used to, to encourage these extremist groups. But like I say extremist groups, and they always mention that and the alt-right. I've noticed in none of these reviews, not one of them mention anybody on Like the left, they don't mention anything about Antifa. They don't mention anything about that. It's always either alt-right or just extremist groups, like, but they don't focus on nothing that would even be considered or like, anything that would point to the left. So there seems to be only focused on one direction, which is not surprising because obviously most of these critics are leftists. So, but that's just something I noticed in that. So, so that's, so just want to end with that because as far as I'm pretty sure I'll probably turn out watching it, sometime. But, so before, going to get to our interview now with kind of Burton to talk about, the new news outlet, The Texan. So before that, we'll hear a word from Politichicks and we'll get to our interview. Hello, this is Brian Bledsoe, host of Trend Chat, also contributor at Politichicks.com. Here to tell you about the new book called Politichicks, a Clarion Call to Political Activism, with over 300 pages from contributors like myself, talking about topics such as education, social issues, healthcare, the Second Amendment, and of course, activism. I encourage you all to check it out at Politichicks.com and is also available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
This is Dana Lash, and you're listening to Trend Chat.
Hello, this is Trend Chat. And we are very pleased to have a returning guest with us. She is the founder and CEO of The Texan. She is Konni Burton. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Brian?
So, first off, for people that don't know, what is The Texan?
So The Texan is an online political news site, organization. We just launched, I guess it was at the end of May of this year. We basically, I got tired of being frustrated with the left of center media that we have here in Texas. I'm tired of, the things that the left of center media report being hostile to the worldview of those of us who are right of center. And so we launched this new media organization. It's only online. We launched it, as I mentioned, at the end of, did I say May? Yeah, end of May. And so we couldn't be more excited about what we've accomplished in a short amount of time, the people we put together, and the amount of content that we're putting out daily to Texans so that they can read what's going on in politics in Texas without, having to feel like they're the enemy when they read an article about politics.
As a supporter of yours, when you was in the Texas Senate and the results of the 2018 election were very disappointing. And I want to ask you, so how were you in the time afterwards? And I guess in that time, when did you decided to start the Texan?
Right. Okay. So, obviously, as you mentioned, the 2018 election was pretty disastrous for down ballot races. It was not necessarily a blue wave, a Democratic wave that swept Texas, but it definitely was a veto wave. When you have a candidate that comes in and has about, $80 million to drop on the state of Texas, and when it's coupled with the veto mania that was just so pervasive with the media here in Texas, down ballot races just couldn't, overcome that amount of spending. Ted Cruz, of course, he entered veto into the race against Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz, barely won the race, 50-point-something%. And so those of us that were down ballot, particularly in our district, the Senate District 10, it is one of the closest districts in terms of Republican/Democrat. It's the tightest district in the whole state of Texas. So in a good year, it leans 3% Republican, but this was a year of new voters on the Democratic side coming out voting for Beto, voting straight ticket, and many of us lost just because of that alone. So, it was discouraging, certainly, because we have so much more to fight for here in Texas. And I hate to see a Democrat, in any position here, particularly these days, of how far left Democrats are. But, I was an activist before I decided to run for Senate, and will always be an activist at heart, because I believe in limited government, personal responsibility, free market economics. It's what I truly believe in. I believe in those principles. And I believe that we have to fight here in the state of Texas, because as so many have said, as goes Texas, so goes the country, right? So even though it was a disappointing loss, I knew that the fight wasn't over. And it was really my husband who had been thinking about this media vision for a while, because obviously I was busy, doing, running, being the senator for Senate District 10. So when the election happened, shortly thereafter, my husband started talking to me about us actually getting into this market, because he's been very, very frustrated that there's nobody, no media organization that is that focuses on the right of center Texans, the stories that are of interest to us. All the stories that are presented currently are from the left of center. So he was the one that kind of approached me about this. He was all on board because he was, like I mentioned, had already been thinking about it for some time. So we decided to do it. And in really a miraculous amount of time, we threw this organization, and I don't mean to say that we threw it together hurriedly, but it's just kind of amazing. I mean, we did our due diligence, obviously have a business plan, did lots and lots of research and work behind the scenes before we launched. But still, at the end of the day, I'm still amazed at how quickly we were able to put this whole organization and business together and launch it. And I think that speaks to the people that immediately jumped on board when we talked about our vision, and also just the people, the voice in the market. So while it was somewhat disappointing, we knew that the fight wasn't over, and we're just taking our fight in a different direction now.
And as far as for the Texan, it's strictly online, correct?
It is, and so it is only an online publication. We do also have podcasts. So we've already done some big name, Congressman Dan Crenshaw we've had various legislators at the state level. We just had the Young Americans for Liberty president on, because they moved their whole operation from D.C. to Texas. So that was a kind of, unique angle to have them on and hear why. But it is only online, both written and podcast. We're definitely not moving into the legacy media world of printed paper. That's pretty much even though there's some people that still like to get that printed paper, it's pretty much a dying breed these days.
And if people want to find that podcast, would just look up just the Texan?
Right. So if everybody could go to it is the Texan.news, which is kind of a different URL, but it fits perfectly, obviously. So if they just go to the Texan.news and pull up our site, they'll see all the articles that we have. They'll also see all the podcast platforms that we're on, and we're on all of them. So, they can just go to the particular platform they choose to listen to podcasts on and subscribe to those. Those are really, we also have on those podcasts a weekly roundup where our staff writers and reporters get together and talk about the news of the week, and those are really fun to listen to. And I'm kind of the generation that's not used to podcasts, so me saying that means a lot because it's just not something that I'm used to, and yet I enjoy them thoroughly. So I think your listeners out there will also enjoy them, and particularly those that maybe don't sit down and read the articles. It's a great podcast to listen to kind of catch up on what the news is, the political news is in Texas.
And also, I guess the content, would it be like just mostly on politics, or like on the Texas legislature and something like that?
Yeah, so we are only Texas focused, but as it pertains on issues and legislators and different things like that as it pertains to Texas. So, in other words, we do talk federal, we do talk state level, and we do talk local. You mean right about, I guess I should say. So we talk federal, state, local, but as it pertains to Texas, so obviously there's going to be issues at the federal level that very much affect Texas. For instance, immigration, right? That is a huge issue in the state of Texas, particularly because of our border. And so while, let's say, a particular congressman, maybe even from another state, may put forth some legislation on immigration, we're going to talk about that, even though maybe that congressman is from another state, because it's an issue that is very important here in the state of Texas. But for the most part, we are talking to, those who are Democrats or Republicans from the state of Texas. In other words, we're not going to write a story on a President Trump or a Congresswoman AOC's latest tweet. That's not of our concern. But we are going to write about, a policy that President Trump may be talking about that affects, people here in Texas, life issues. There's a lot of those kinds of things that come from the federal level. And so, we'll certainly talk about those. But mainly we want people to understand, or we want them to read about the issues that affect Texans so that they can be educated voters when they go to the ballot box.
I've been on since you announced it, and I definitely enjoy going on and with the content. I've listened to the podcast, and even it's on YouTube as well. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yes, it is. One of the things that I want to talk about, if I may, we are a subscription-based site, and I just want to explain that to your listeners as to why. Because it's a big part of who we are because of all the research that we did. There's a lot of news out there, Brian. You and I know this. A lot of news, a lot of fake news out there, and a lot of it has developed because of the kind of business model that these media operations work under. So, for instance, a lot of them are get their revenue from ads, right? So that's how they try to sustain themselves, is by selling ads. And first and foremost, we all see it in online, how horrible that is, because you're constantly having to X out ad after ad after ad, or video that pops up, or things like that take your attention away from the actual story. But not only that, you have to have so many ads to get the revenue to sustain the business that that's where this clickbait comes from, unfortunately, right? All that these media organizations focus on is more ways to get people to click on the article itself. And so a lot of times you'll see these headlines that are kind of like wow, I can't believe that, which makes you click on it, and then you find out the rest of the article really had nothing to do with the headline. We've all been frustrated by that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's called you're right, and that's called clickbait. And these media operations do that because not all, but most of what they care about is just getting you to click on the article. And so we certainly did not want to be that kind of organization. We're not looking to be, just to get clicks. We're not looking to have clickbait as the headlines. We're not wanting to slip in ad after ad after ad. We just want to inform Texans. And so, we're not ad-based, and that's why we went to the subscription-based. And while that may be a little different for some people nowadays, even though back in the day when we got our newspapers, we all subscribed to a newspaper, right? So we're trying to kind of re-teach that to people as to why we are subscription-based. The other reason that we did that, in addition to not wanting to have these annoying ads and clickbait, and it takes the focus away from the reader. Our organization is very focused on the person who purchases our product, and that's the reader. And so that's who we want paying for the product, so that we can be quick to respond to the types of issues they want to hear about, things that they're concerned about. We want to be able to move quickly to those kinds of articles. And, we don't want to be focused on what the advertisers want us to print about. We want to be focused on what our readers want us to write about. And so that's another reason. I just want to, let people know. However, everybody gets a lot of free articles per month. You get at least 3 free articles per month. Everybody does. And then if you're willing to give us your email, you get a couple more per month. What we're really hoping is that we'll dip everybody's toe in the water with the Texan, and they'll go, you know what? This is just straight reporting. It's not garbage. It's not fake news. They don't carry anybody's water. They're not, a left-of-center narrative-pushing media organization. They're just giving us the facts. And so what we're hoping with those free articles, people will read them and appreciate that we're just reporting the news without being a left-of-center narrative-pushing organization, and that then they'll subscribe and be a premium member, which means if you want to commit to a full year, it's $90, which comes out to about $7.50 a month. Which we think is really pretty, doable for most people. It's about a fast food and a half meal a month, right? And so then you get unlimited content. You get every article you want to look at. You get every podcast you want to hear. You get everything. But even if you're not a paid subscriber yet, we hope that people will share our articles via all the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, because even you can still share them, because even if people who are not subscribers, they can open it up and read it, because likely they're still on their free articles too. So, it just helps us. The more people share our articles, it helps get the word out about this media organization that's taking on fake news and, writes about stories that are important to right-of-center people here in Texas, without making them feel like they're, racist or bigots or liars, which is kind of how we get called, right, in a backward kind of way from so many of the media today.
I guess one question I want to bring up is what goals are you looking to accomplish for the future of the Texan?
Namely, I want to be a source of news for Texans that, regardless of the side of the aisle they sit on, while we are unabashedly right of center, all of us who work at the Texan are right of center, but we produce news that is straight reporting. And we hope that people will appreciate and read the Texan just because of that alone. It's like, you know what? They just are reporting the news, and they're letting me decide, how I feel about that news. And so we hope that we are respected and appreciated by people on both sides of the aisle, and we hope that they get educated about the issues, so that they can make educated decisions when they go to the ballot box. So they don't, read something only told from a point of view that tends to not respect the right of center viewpoint. We can all disagree. It doesn't mean that people that have a different opinion on the right of center, as I mentioned earlier, are racist or bigots because of the way that they view an issue. Again, for instance, the border security issue is the most glaring one, right? Just because some Texans believe in the safety and security of Texas and want a strong and secure border does not make them racist. And too much of the time, media organizations report stories about immigration from that perspective that marginalizes the opinions of those who are right of center. And we don't do that in the Texan. We respect your viewpoint, and we just give you the information. And so ultimately our goal is to earn respect and enable people to make educated decisions at the ballot box.
Yeah, I really think that an outlet like the Texan will bring some balance to the reporting about what goes on in Texas. So I'm really looking forward to the future of it. And if people want to know more, I know you mentioned it before about the podcast, but just once again, if people want to know where to find the Texan on social media, where would they go?
Yes, thank you. So it is thetexan.news. So if people could please pull up that site, take a look at it. It's a beautiful site without ads, just clean, beautiful content. We also have beautiful pictures. We have our own photographer and use our own photos when we can. Obviously, some we can't when we're talking federal issues a lot of the time. But take a look at our site, and on there we show all the platforms where you can go, and also look at all our podcasts that we've already done and those that are coming up. We're going to have some great ones coming up as well. Then, of course, go to Twitter. Put in the Texan. It's all a little different on all our social medias. Like I think on Twitter it's like the Texan News. They're all a little bit different, but you can of course put in search for the Texan on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and follow those accounts because I'll tell you what, it's good stuff. Really good stuff, and I think people will really love what we're doing, and I hope they do, and appreciate what we're doing. Once you become a subscriber, also, you'll be a part of our surveys that we send out. We're always anxious to hear the kind of information that you're interested in reading about. And so, again, that just makes us we're very agile because we're focused on our readers. We can, put out information, articles, podcasts that are of interest to our readers, and we hope that they'll do that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. And again, I really... all the best on this new outlet, and hopefully we'll have it back on again soon.
Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate you always giving me an opportunity to talk about what I'm doing. Appreciate it very much.
Yep, and thanks to Konni for joining us. And so that's it for this episode. And again, appreciate everyone listening. Like, share, subscribe. 5-star reviews. You know the deal. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, at TrendChat 24/7. Check us out. Thanks for listening, and until next episode next week, I don't know who the guest's going to be, so you just have to wait and see on social media. Until then, we'll chat with you later.